Welcome everybody to a special presentation of ASTV Sports Show brought to you by Tovi Hockey. Of course, over the last 3 months, we've been interpreting all the different restrictions, the guidelines when it comes to amateur sport, and everything came to a brief and a quick halt. Nonetheless, we are starting to see some of those restrictions lifted. Phase 1, Phase 2, and some potential amateur sports returning to play. Joining me now will be Jeff Hnatiuk from Sport Manitoba. Thank you for joining me, Jeff. How are you doing this Friday?
I'm doing well. Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it because you're kind of like the head guru of everything when it comes to Sport Manitoba. I've seen you in your meetings. I've seen you around the building. The building is still somewhat shut down except for a couple of amenities, correct?
Yeah, the building more or less. I mean, we've had the clinic has been somewhat operational, where we've had our sport medicine physician has been working right through. The offices, though, for a period of time, well, the building more or less, I would say from the middle of March, 1st of April up until the 1st of May was pretty much shut down. Most people working remotely. But, you know, as of May 4th, we've slowly sort of had some people coming back. And then now, hopefully, with the restrictions being eased even more as of Monday, not only will we see more people back in the offices, but we're also hoping to get some of our programs up and going. We're hoping that by sometime in June, by mid-June, that we'll have our performance center up and going and athletes back in and training. Our fitness center, we're hoping to open up by the middle of the month. Our meeting room spaces by the middle of the month. All, of course, under the guidelines that the provincial government has put forward and public health have put forward relative to social distancing and the number of people that are able to gather at any one particular time and point, and all the sanitization and the enhanced sanitization that'll be a part of the building. But, you know, I think it's also important that, you know, we did a fair amount of work as Sport Manitoba over the month of April and into May with a lot of programming over social media. I know our fitness center staff and our performance staff kind of kept things going by doing a fair amount of online programming to try and keep people as fit and you know, active as we possibly could as an organization. And then, of course, if we look at the provincial sport governing bodies themselves, a lot of work that they have been doing in, especially the summer sports, really in trying to prepare as much as they could for the potential to return back to play. And with so many unknowns, obviously, that, you know, we've had to deal with as a society over the COVID-19 pandemic, a huge challenge for them, the staff and the volunteers, in trying to maintain a course where they're planning for returning to play, but really not knowing when that might happen. And, you know, and the challenges that we've all had from an economic point of view when you look at sports that depend a lot on program fees or membership fees, or as we do at Sport Manitoba, with revenue from our fitness center and other programs that we run. So we, as so many have even in the business industry, have been challenged with the virus, but we've been able to sort of maintain the course somewhat and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. You talk about maintaining the course and following the restrictions and the guidelines from the province, of course. In the last 3 months that's really been shutting things down and the ease of these restrictions, Jeff, the approach for Sport Manitoba is to obviously take you know, the direction from above, but how is it able to relay the information online? I mean, we talk about the fitness center, how they've been doing their weekly challenges, and the podcast has still been moving. Sport Manitoba is now relieving or giving this information to its association, its governing bodies. Where should some of that information be looked at from people in perspective to when sport may return, either organized or recreationally?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think connecting with the provincial sport governing body sites is where people can go. I know that the provincial sport governing bodies have been trying to maintain that outreach to their membership, their leagues, and their associations. We have maintained since sort of the lockdown has happened with the pandemic, constant communication with the provincial sport governing bodies. We've been having very successful Zoom calls once a week with all the provincial bodies, and we've had upwards of 70 to 75 people who are participating on those. So it's a great way to keep the communication flowing. Yeah, as far as the return to play, I mean, it's been very interesting, and I know the provincial sport governing bodies have been doing a lot of work with their national sport organizations, talking to their counterparts in other provinces and territories around the strategies that they're looking at putting into place in return to play, and in anticipation really of some of the restrictions that government had in place being lifted. I mean, we recently have seen the expansion of the number of people who can gather indoors to 25 and 50 outdoors, which is huge when you look at how that impacts some sports. The province has been very good in providing some guidelines through public health around social distancing and what does that mean. I know there was, when the first phase of the plan came out, it sort of hinted to the fact that a phase 2 could be coming along at some point, maybe in early June, where non-contact sports could get back to play. So there's a lot of question around what does non-contact mean, and it always relates to the when I say it always relates, for those of us in sport, think of contact sports as being the footballs and the hockeys, right, etc. Non-contact sports being a lot of the others, but in the environment we're in right now, non-contact meaning social distancing, and how can, as a way of activity in sport, how do we minimize, or how do the sport governing bodies minimize that social contact, or the physical contact that happens, and try to maintain as much as you can the social distancing parameters, as well as all the enhanced sanitization that needs to be put in place. So the sports have been doing a lot of work on that, and now that we have more of the restrictions lifted, especially as of June 1, there's a number of the sport governing bodies that I think are very well prepared to have their sports return to play. I think we'll see a mix of returning directly to competition at some level versus maybe training and allowing practices and training to occur for a period of time leading up to the actual competition. But I think we've been saying since the restrictions have been lifted that the public need to be very aware that this isn't necessarily something that's going to turn a switch overnight. And as of June 1st, ball diamonds are going to be full, and soccer pitches are going to be full, hockey rinks are full, and there are still very specific guidelines that need to be followed, and sports must put a plan in place as to how they will follow those guidelines, and if need be, modify their sport to ensure those guidelines are put in place. So we've probably had about 20 sport organizations that have submitted plans. I anticipate that a number of those plans, most of those plans that are submitted, will be reviewed and feedback back to the sport organizations virtually within days. So that allows them to now look at, okay, implementation, and is it a staged implementation, and how they might do that going forward. And I know so many of the sport organizations, and understandably so, are under a fair amount of pressure from just the public and people within their organizations wanting to get back, right? Wanting to get back to those activities that they enjoyed prior to the pandemic. And we fully support that and want to do what we can to get people back as soon as possible, because not only the physical and the health benefits, but the mental health benefits of being able to get out, be active, and do the things that people really enjoy and have fun doing. So that's very important.
The social aspect, the activity portion, it all means well for strong mental, physical, and everything positives. I mean, everything's positive when sport gets returned. How much, Jeff, have you missed live sports in the last 3 months? I mean, playoffs, professionals, amateurs, the beginning of leagues, obviously in the spring for Winnipeg and Manitoba is a huge deal. I mean, some organizations have, or governing bodies have already said that they're going to be putting a delay on this year already, and they'll be beginning next year. But, you know, that return to play has got to be so key. And like you said, following the guidelines in place. Is there something, or is there a body within Sport Manitoba that's looking over these propositions and saying, okay, we can allow this based on if we continue to do A, B, and C, and we do it through a phased portion?
Yeah, so the process is really one where the provincial sport governing body develops their plan, and a lot of them, quite honestly, are working with their national sport organizations to develop the plans. The plans that we've seen are very solid plans and very detailed plans as to how they will go about ensuring to the best of their ability, the social distancing aspects, or minimizing the social distancing infringements in their sport, the sanitization and ensuring the cleanliness of the facilities that they're using, etc., and ensuring that their participants are as safe as they can be. So the plans are that we've seen so far are very good. They come to us. We've got a small team at Sport Manitoba that just does a very quick review on them based on the guidelines that the provincial government has in place. And then those are passed on to the provincial government for review. And then we get a sense of whether the plans are following the guidelines or include the guidelines that the province has in place, and give the sports any feedback that we may have regarding the plans, whether there's a few adjustments that are suggested, or whether the plans are good and they're good to go as of, well, in some cases, June 1.
So would we say that there's more individual sports being, quote unquote, allowed to begin participation come June 1, whereas the group sports that involve more spectators and more players still needing a little more review?
That's a really good point. And it's one where I think what we saw in May 4th, when the first sort of phase was incorporated by the province, or was implemented by the province, golf and tennis, two individual sports, two outdoor sports that I think were really conducive to allowing for social distancing and allowing for sanitization. I think those who are golfers are aware of some of the things that golf courses have put into place relative to no rakes in the bunkers and those kinds of things. The evolution to approving, and I think there was probably 2 or 3 other individual sports that have recently been approved: rowing, paddling, athletics. Some of the sports that also were very conducive to that social distancing. The challenging sports are the team sports for sure, and especially those sports that have some level of contact just by nature of the sport itself. But with the restriction of the guidelines from the province, I think what we will see is more team sports that will be getting underway within the next couple of weeks. And although probably looks like the majority could be outdoor related sports, I think we'll also see some indoor sports and some indoor activity being able to return very shortly. And the indoor activities become a little more challenging because of the numbers, the more limited numbers that can gather in an indoor space. And of course, the social distancing becomes a bit more of a challenge. So those plans need to reflect that. But I fully anticipate in the next few weeks that we'll see some indoor activities that will open up as well as outdoor. But I think your question and your point relative to team sports versus individual sports, the team sports tend to have a little more complexities that need to be planned for.
Regardless of an individual or a team sport, Jeff, do you see some of these guidelines that have been used over the last 3 months to remain implemented within the community centers or the facilities that are being used? Because, I mean, the normal got us to where we were March 11th, and quote unquote, the new normal that will continue through all these phases will certainly have a better understanding of cleanliness, sanitization, and probably improved guidelines for facilities. How does Sport Manitoba look to review and maintain the good use and the functionality of some of these facilities throughout this current phase period, as well as moving into, the fall and potentially the wintertime?
Yeah, I think a personal opinion is I think that we're going to see a lot of changes relative to sanitization, especially in not just sport facilities, but in so many
Everywhere.
other different sectors and industries, right? But if speaking specifically about sport, I mean, it'll depend on the sport. As you know, a lot of the facilities that the sport activities are taking place in are privately owned facilities. So it'll be up to those owners and operators to hopefully look at the sanitization, the enhanced sanitization that's in place now, and hopefully feel that it's important to carry that on through beyond when we get back to, as you say, whatever the new normal may look like. And I can speak specifically about the fact, because we are a facility owner and operator with the Sport for Life Center, and we're already looking at. I mean, we've got things like some of the screens, the plastic screens at our reception areas and things like that. We don't plan on removing those really anytime soon. Even some of the enhanced sanitization that we're looking at now within our facility, we plan to carry those forward through beyond when we get back to the sort of new normal, because I think we've probably had our eyes opened to some extent to the importance of proper sanitization, and sometimes understanding now the importance more than ever. I think that'll factor into our planning for sure as Sport Manitoba, and hopefully that will be looked at the same way with the other facilities that sport organizations use.
Last question before I let you go. Well, last serious question, I let you go. When it comes to the business aspect and the business side of things, Jeff, a lot of these associations have they been looking for relief? I mean, you talk about registration and membership dues and fees, especially for the spring and summer sports, when there's a zero number in terms of membership fees and collections. It's hard for these businesses to continue functioning. How does this amateur sport, how is this taking a hit on amateur sport here in Manitoba? And, the plan is still hopefully to maintain their associations for upcoming years.
Yeah, it affects different sports differently, obviously, but I think we're looking at a number of sports that are having a very challenging time because they don't have that revenue that's coming in. We have been doing a lot of work and spending a lot of time with going through the different federal government programs that are available and providing support and assistance for the sport organizations to help access some of those programs. I have to say our provincial government which we receive a significant amount of funding for, have been very supportive in maintaining the level of funding to amateur sport, which allows, in a lot of cases, the provincial sport organizations to continue their operations, kind of keep their head afloat until they get to return to play and get some of the revenues that they've depended on previously through programming or membership fees. So it's definitely an issue. It's an economic issue, but it's one that we hope all the sport organizations are going to be able to get through. And again, I can't sort of stress enough the importance of the support that we've been getting from both the federal government and the provincial government to do so.
It's been absolutely huge, no doubt. I mean,
yeah.
Sorry, one more question. The
Yep.
not so distant future and the further future, we have some exciting news with 2021. I believe the games in Dauphin. Planning is still on the go for that. I know I've talked to Sam about that last month, Sam Cortez, and as well the return to hockey, because I know Hockey Manitoba has got a couple of deadlines coming up here in the beginning of June for registration and looking at players. What do you see as the vision of, you know, the return to hockey here in Manitoba? Because it is our most, you know, outside of, you know, possibly football, it's the most important sport in Manitoba. It's played the longest. It's got a lot of players. But that in 2021, how is the planning for both of those coming along?
You got a little bit of a football bias. I take it.
I mean, I'm not built for comfort. I'm built for speed and punishment. I'm not going to lie, Jeff. And
all right.
I talked to Bill Johnson, who's the executive director of Football Manitoba. And we always joke about the little buddies tackle, the old Dutch crunchers, and how impressive it is to see these young kids fly around on an indoor field and have so much fun. And each sport, I mean, football and hockey have always been dear to my heart. I've played them my whole life. Yeah. You'll see Ladaney and Tomlinson behind me. You'll see hockey pucks behind me. It's two sports I know and love. And I know they're very big sport groups in sport building.
Yeah. You know, hockey, I have a, I can't comment directly relative to hockey. I do know in talking to Peter Woods that, I mean, they are, as is Hockey Canada, looking at what return to play would look like, and they're obviously, I mean, have to, whatever that may look like, have to conform with the guidelines that are in place. So I can't say specifically what's happening with hockey, but I do know that they're spending a lot of time looking at what return to play may look like. As far as the games, yeah, we made the decision along with, obviously our board made the decision, but in consultation with the provincial government as well as the host society and our sponsors, that the games would be moved to 21. The Dauphin games would be moved to 20, the summer of 21. It gives maybe the Dauphin host society, who've been doing just such a fantastic job in the city of Dauphin, have been doing a fantastic job in planning for those games, the opportunity maybe to take just a bit of a breather this summer. But I know that they'll rally back together and get their planning moving forward for what we know will be a very, very successful games in the summer of 21. And I think a really valuable part of being able to just move those games for 1 year is it enables the host society to keep that core group, or most of those volunteers that have been spent the last couple of years planning these games together and moving forward for planning for 21. But hopefully, we're hoping a lot of the athletes who had qualified or would have qualified for the games in 20 will also be a part of that age grouping with the sports, that they will be able to participate in 21. So that was a really important factor for us too, in just moving it by the 1 year. And then of course we've got a Canada Games coming up too in Niagara region that will be happening in the summer of 21. So we've got a lot of work that's been going on in getting Team Manitoba prepared for the Canada Games too.
I mean, they've got a busy schedule as always. You know, great to talk sports with someone that enjoys the amateur sports side. I know you've been involved for so many years with Sport Manitoba. Keep doing what you do, and you guys are doing a great job. Do you think that there's going to be a mad rush once everything comes back to play, or do you think people are going to be hesitant getting involved again with regards to the restrictions?
You know, I think it's going to be a combination of both. I mean, we've heard a lot of stories about people who are so eager to get back and want to get back to play, and we fully understand that. But we've also heard some stories of some members of organizations that are really saying, "Boy, should we be getting back this soon?" And I think it's probably just a reflection, Theo, overall of people in society, and you've got those who really want to get back to play and doing the things that they did prior to the pandemic as soon as you possibly can. And those that are still thinking, boy, we've got to approach this very cautiously, and are a little hesitant to maybe jump back into things. But I think overall, from a sport perspective, with the sports developing the plans, we fully anticipate that when sport returns, or as sport returns, I should say, because it is returning, it's going to be done in a very planned fashion by our provincial sport organizations, and one that will always put the health and safety of our athletes and those participating in the programs as the highest priority.
That's well said, Jeff. Thank you very much. Got the golf clubs out yet?
I have played a couple of times. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, a couple of the days when it was nice, I did get out and play. How about you?
They're sitting in the garage.
Okay.
First game, hopefully, will be next week. We don't know where, but it will be happening next week. Yes. So
nice.
Have to get the wrenches rocking. Gotta get out there and do something. And like I said, this take-home message here is obviously stay safe, keep your distances, but maintain that physical activity on a daily basis. It's so important to get out there, at least get some fresh air. I mean, you can't get trapped. Like, now that the weather's getting nice, I mean, not today, but weather's getting nice. Get out there, enjoy some, beautiful sunshine. Grab a basketball, grab a ball, take a couple of buddies out there, take the glove out, play some stick'em, throw some 500 up in the air, do something, enjoy it. Go for a bike ride, grab a scooter. It does not mean you can stay in your house all the time anymore. Go out and play and have some fun, right?
Exactly, and that's the key. Go out and have some fun.
Go out and have some fun. Jeff Hnatiuk with Sport Manitoba. Thank you again. This has been an ASTV special presentation brought to you by Tovi Hockey. Thank you again, Jeff.
Thanks, Theo. Thanks for having me.
Have a great weekend.
You too.